In this video, we're going to talk about how much fat do you need to be consuming on keto. So this is a very important video, so you might want to watch this several times just so you can really break it down and digest it, no pun intended. All right, so I want to talk about several concepts here. Rather than giving you like a cookbook of telling you how many grams or whatever, I want to give you the concepts. Now, take a look at this pie chart here. Now notice that the healthy keto plan that I recommend is about 20% protein, 70% fat, 5% low glycemic carbohydrates, and 5% veggies. And the reason I didn't want to mix that in with the carbs is because I don't even want to count that. I encourage people to have a lot of leafy greens and vegetables just to get your minerals and certain vitamins. So I put that as an extra little chart. So this is 10 plus 20 plus 70 equals 100, and we're talking about calories. Now, normally when you consume protein in its whole form, and I'm giving a generality, it's not exactly this, but if you consume beef, fish, egg, I'm talking about like salmon or egg, the ratio of fat to protein is roughly 1 to 1, okay? Now, I'm talking about in weight, in grams, not calories. In calories, it's usually 2 to 1, fat being a little more than double the calories to protein. Why? Because of this. Protein has 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So this is more than twice protein. If you're trying to lose weight, one way to do it is to drop your fat. I want to clarify what I meant by that. I never meant to say go lean protein. Okay, so I would never recommend that. What I'm talking about is get rid of the extra fats, restrict the extra fats, like the MCT oil, the butter that you put in your coffee in the morning, bulletproof coffee, or the keto-bound desserts that contain extra fat. But when you're consuming protein with the ketogenic diet, you always want to keep the fat that normally comes with that protein together. Also, the leaner you are with the protein, the higher the insulin response. That's why whey protein, which virtually has no fat, is very high on the insulin index. It triggers insulin. And so you want to stick with proteins that have higher amounts of fat. Now, roughly how much fat should you be consuming on a ketogenic diet? It's very difficult to say simply because you have a lot of variables. You have the age of the person, and you have the physical activity, you have the metabolism, and you also have health issues. For example, if the person has gut issues, and I'm talking about celiac or irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or even an autoimmune condition, they need to make sure that their ratio is definitely 2 to 1, twice as much fat as protein, but in weight, in grams, not calories. So I want to make an important distinction. People with gut issues have a lot of inflammation. And the more gut issues someone has, the more they should only stick with animal protein and fat, as in the carnivore, at least for a while, for some months, to heal the gut. If you don't have a gut issue, I still recommend you do your fats to protein 2 to 1, but in calories, okay? But it's not easy, but you can do it. But to be successful, if you have gut issues, you want to increase more animal fat so you get this ratio 2 to 1 in weight or grams, okay? Not the calories. The calorie 2 to 1 ratio is if you don't have gut issues. And that's actually pretty easy because normally the beef, fish, and egg come at this ratio right here with a 2 to 1 ratio in calories and a 1 to 1 ratio in weight. So I want to pause here. If you are confused, back up, rewatch this because I went through things a bit fast. And the reason for some of these complexities is that you have some different variables you're trying to deal with. And some people want to lose weight, some people want to gain more weight, some people want to maintain the weight, and some people have gut issues. And if you have a gut issue, you definitely want to do carnivore for a while. But not just lean protein, you want to do fattier protein. And if there's gut issues, in addition to this fat to protein ratio, you want to avoid certain things. You want to avoid the fats from nuts and coconuts and the fat from seed, like in seed oils. You want to avoid dairy and sometimes even avoid egg and butter unless it's clarified as ghee, and avoid avocado and MCT oil since this comes from coconuts. And I'm sorry it's so restrictive, but for some people, if they go on a regular ketogenic diet and they're doing the nuts and the seeds and the dairy, it's going to tear them up. So even though the keto-friendly diet for a gut issue is a bit restrictive, it can give a person tremendous relief if they do it correctly. And there's a few tips I want to give you for someone who needs to increase more animal fats with their protein and keep it at this 2-to-1 ratio. And I'm talking about weight. Sausage has higher amounts of fat from the farmer's market. You can do pate, which is an organ meat type product that will give you a higher fat to protein ratio. You can make your own stews to include more fat in there, because if you're making a hamburger or baking, you're basically frying off all the fat and getting rid of the fat. With the stew, you can keep it all together. And of course, eggs have a good amount of fat, but even this is a 1-to-1 ratio. And so I don't recommend doing carnivore just with steak. I recommend adding more of these other things right here. Now, if you don't have a gut issue, you can do these right here, these fats right here, and you can consume beef, fish, and eggs normally like they are, and that will give you a 2-to-1 ratio in calories. Now, the last question is, are you going to be counting your calories or grams with fat? That's going to be very, very labor intensive. I'm just going to give you one little rule of thumb. I would mainly focus on not consuming protein that's lean, but protein that normally comes with the fat. I would consume fattier protein. And if we look at the weight of that protein before it's cooked, and you were to look at a whole day of consuming protein, it should be between 400 grams to 600 grams of that protein. And that way you don't have to count the fat because the fat comes with the protein. Now, there's one more confusion I want to mention and clarify. When we're talking about 400 grams to 600 grams of protein, I have to make a distinction, because if you're taking, let's say, a hamburger patty, right? A hamburger patty has various things in there. You have collagen, you have no carbs, there's protein, there's actually a good amount of water in there. So you can break it down by weight, so much water, so much collagen, so much protein. I'm not talking about the actual protein grams in the steak. I'm talking about the actual weight of the entire protein itself. Should be between 400 grams to 600 grams. So if you're weighing protein foods like fish, egg, or beef, this is ideally per day. If you target between 400 and 600 grams, 600 would be someone that's more active, a larger person, and 400 would be a smaller person. And in the description down below, I gave you more examples. All right, thanks for watching.